What is up, guys? Welcome in to yet another edition of Benstant Reaction, a spin-off of the Ben Garcia Show. React to a game, big news, whatever it is going on in the NFL, the NBA landscape, which more of that will be coming very soon, especially with the conclusion of what we just saw today between the Cardinals and the Panthers. So with that being said, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend of the show. We are doing just tremendous numbers over the past couple of weeks here on the Ben Garcia Show. And I would also appreciate if you guys follow me on all social media platforms. You guys are doing that in bunches. Recently, my Twitter followers keep on going up. Instagram, TikTok is doing insane numbers recently, so I really appreciate that. So please continue to follow me on all those social media platforms. You can see them in the description below, or you can just find them yourself at Ben Garcia Show. It is the same everywhere. X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I think it's even the same on there. YouTube. It's everywhere. So, that would be my handle that you would find me at. All right, let's jump right into it. There is so many things from this game that we have to talk about. A lot of different things. There is defensively, quarterback, coaching, special teams at times. There are so many things to get to in this loss. I mean, the GM we have to talk about after that Marvin Harrison Jr. performance in this game. Let's start here, though. The Cardinals today, their season is over. Officially, I didn't think they'd be in the playoffs anyways, so I'm not super hurt by this loss today. And I've been a fan of this team my entire life. I've been watching this team my entire life. I've been covering this team over the past couple of years for numerous outlets, whether it's Player Insiders or Fox Sports 910 or whatever it is. I've been doing it for a while. So I'm not surprised by this, but you know, I got to be honest, I do feel bad for the casual fan, the person that heard all of the optimism about the Cardinals this season and basically saying like, oh my goodness, they could actually be fun, feisty, they could win games this year. And they didn't deliver on that. And so a lot of Cardinals fans are going to check out again over the next couple of seasons, and rightfully so. This is why I don't get mad at fans when they sell their tickets to opposing teams. If you want people to come, win games. The ultimate cure to everything is winning. And the Cardinals, since week 10 or week 11, whenever the bye week was, have done nothing but lose. Outside of beating the Patriots, and I think they beat someone else. I can't remember. Maybe not. Maybe not. No, they haven't. Because they were at 6 wins at the bye week. They beat just the Patriots. So since then, they beat the Patriots led by Drake May, which, make no mistake about it, that game was not as big as the score might allude it to. The Patriots had a couple of chances to win that game, but they're young, and they're even worse than the Panthers right now. But I don't like to toot my own horn, especially in these kind of videos where the Cardinals lose, because it doesn't help anyone, but I think it adds to my credit. I did pick the Cardinals to win this game because I don't pick predictions by gut feelings. That is ridiculous. That's stupid. That's not it. That's not proving your sports knowledge. That's just having a gut feeling. You have to have a reason for why the opposing team is going to win this game. And I picked the Cardinals to win this game, but I said, make no mistake about it, the Carolina Panthers are the Cardinals from last season when the Cardinals beat the Eagles. They were this team with a quarterback that they were excited about. They upped the new coaching staff, new GM. Everything was different. They riddled everything from the last coaching regime. And then what happened? They beat the Eagles, and the next season they fall flat on their face. The Panthers are the Cardinals from last season. I think it might even been the same week where the Cardinals beat the Eagles this time last year. The Panthers were looking for that signature moment, just like the Cardinals were last year, to point at everyone on this team and say, hey, we can compete with good teams. We just need a few more players. That's what the Panthers did today. They said to hell with the draft pick, to hell with getting a better player. Let's just go win. Let's get a culture win. And that's what the Panthers did today. The Panthers now at 4 wins, might not win another game for the rest of the year, but they showed through their progression, even last week, going up against the Eagles, we can compete with teams. And I tried to warn Cardinals fans about that, combined with just the bad history of going back east and having to play the Carolina Panthers. This team just simply owns the Cardinals since 2015. It's outside of the 1 year where they started Baker Mayfield and the Cardinals won that game. The Panthers utterly own this Cardinals franchise ever since 2015. Cam Newton transformed that years ago. So I was right there. I was emphatically right that the Panthers were looking for that signature win, just like the Cardinals were last year, and they got it today, and they're going to point to this win going into the offseason with momentum and say, we just need to get a couple more guys, hit in the draft a little bit, but we have our quarterback, we have our head coach, and we just need to get to next season and add a couple of more pieces. And then on the inverse, the Cardinals, there was a lot of talk from people that I respect that were all about is this a trap game for the Cardinals? Is this a trap game for the Cardinals? The Panthers, they could lose this game to the Panthers, and then next week doesn't even matter. Well, next week doesn't even matter. In fact, I kind of hope the Cardinals lose the next 2 weeks. There's no reason to win games to end the season other than to help your ego. I also said this. The Cardinals aren't good enough to have a trap game. Trap games are for good teams. Trap games are for the Eagles this week. Well, granted, they lost their quarterback, but still, trap games are for good teams. Trap games are the Bills losing to the Rams the week before they play the Lions. Those are trap games. The Cardinals aren't good enough to have a trap game, which is why I scoffed at this fact all week when people were like, hey, listen, trap game next week. You got the Los Angeles Rams. You got to win that game. You have the Arizona Cardinals playing against the Panthers. No, it's never the case. So if you want to build my credit there or have more of a reason to turn this show off, I was right, which is what I've always led with, logic. I picked this team to win because they had better players, and schematically, I just like Kyler better than Bryce. You can argue that that's not even true anymore, so that's where my head was last week when I was trying to pound the drum that this was not a trap game. You have to win this game. Now let's get to potentially the most important thing. If you're still defending Kyler, if you are still of the belief that he is the quarterback of the future, if you are still of the belief that he can be a top 5, top 6 guy, a top 8 guy, hell, even a top 10 guy, I'm not going to argue with you because you're probably just a fan and you're reacting with emotion. Because Kyler, it's official, cannot win games when it matters. When it matters most, when he needs to make the play, when you ask him to carry you, you will not succeed. That's what it is with Kyler. The story is written. At this point, I couldn't care less if they moved on from Kyler or if they didn't, but we'll get to that in just a minute because I think there's a rational argument to keep him next year. But if you're still defending Kyler and still beating this drum that he can be a top 10 guy or a perennial top 8 guy that can help get you to the playoffs, but maybe not win the Super Bowl, but when you add pieces around him, he can get you there, I'm not going to argue with you. I think you're just a fanatic trying to cope with yet another big loss in Kyler Murray's back pocket. He's not the guy. He's not the guy. He can be a guy, but he's not the guy. Sure, you have a lot of money that you can help out with this roster next year, and you could salvage a 9-8 season and throw player after player and money at the problem, and Kyler can be your starting guy next year, and you might even make the playoffs. But there is no argument anymore to Kyler Murray still being a perennial top quarterback in the NFL that can get you to the playoffs consistently. Not just win you a playoff game, get you there consistently. There's no argument. It's just fanboy belief now, which if you still have that, I'm not going to crush that. You want something to cling on to. I get it. Kyler, ever since coming off of the bye week, has thrown an egregious interception or 2 egregious interceptions in every single game. One to Kobe Bryant against the Seahawks, another one to the Patriots that never was, another one to the Seahawks that was horrendous. This week, another horrific interception on 3rd down. Some people like to call it a punt. It wasn't that. It was a horrific interception. He had a horrific interception against Byron Murphy, but against the Seahawks twice, against the Vikings, against the Patriots, and against the Panthers this week, he has thrown a horrific interception. If you qualify that interception against the Patriots, that never was, that was negated to a penalty. But put no restrictions on it. The Cardinals will be kicking the tires on potentially getting a new quarterback next year. And you might not like that. You might still think because Kyler has flashes of greatness, and he does. But it's not consistent. He's too up and down. You can argue he can't see the field well. You can argue a lot of different things about Kyler. But there is officially no more argument at this point until he shows it that he can be a top guy that can get you to the playoffs consistently. But outside of adding more help to this team, you could add a bunch of different key pieces in the offseason. This team still is not making the playoffs. And get Drew Petzing out of your brain. Because Drew Petzing, it doesn't matter who is calling the plays today. You can blame Drew Petzing all you want. You could have put me back there to call the games today. Kyler Murray should still win in spite of Drew Petzing. Bryce Young, his best player was Adam Thielen today. 34-year-old Adam Thielen, who's still kicking around. He didn't even have Xavier Legette today. And he went up and down the field. He thoroughly outplayed Kyler Murray. While Bryce Young was taking shots and hits to the face from opposing players, was still repeatedly hitting guys on the dot. He was dropping dimes while getting smacked in the backfield by opposing players. Kyler Murray, on the inverse, simultaneously, when he got the ball, was falling down to the ground before he was even hit. One guy is okay with getting hit. One guy is scared to get hit. That's the story of Kyler. He's scared to get hit, doesn't play well against pressure, can't make the play. He could be a guy, but he can't be the guy. And at the end of the day, if the Cardinals move on from him, so be it. Here's my only caveat to that, because I know this video will probably do decently. My Cardinal ones usually do. The comment section will be riddled with get rid of Kyler Murray. I know you want to get rid of Kyler, and to some part, I just kind of want to see something new as well. But just ask yourself this, like, bring your fandom down just for a second. Put the pom-poms down. Don't be a fan for a second. And I mean this seriously. You want to get rid of Kyler, and then what? You want to just draft a guy? Because you're going to have a 12th pick this year, 13th pick this year, somewhere in the teens, right? You want to get rid of Kyler. This is not a good quarterback draft class. That is wildly reported. Shedeur Sanders is the best quarterback this year, and I'm not so sure, this was reported earlier this week, that he would grade out better than Bo Nix was as a prospect last year. So, and if he did, I think at the top end, he might be the third best guy in last year's draft. So what was a phenomenal draft last year for quarterbacks is really bad this year. Cam Ward might be the second best guy, and that dude is a project. You want to talk about a project? That's a project right there in Cam Ward, who has got all this raw talent, but is very similar to the Anthony Richardson line of thinking where he might just never develop. So if you want to move on from Kyler, you can have that opinion, but you also need to have the then what? You want to move on from Kyler Murray, and then what? Do you want to just tank next year and try to get Arch Manning? I heard that from someone else earlier today. Arch Manning hasn't played a singular meaningful game in college football. We don't know if he's going to be a great player. He could be, but I don't know. So you might just be tanking for nothing. And still, you have to do the tanking. The NFL is weird. You might not get it next year. You want to go get Sam Darnold? I mean, okay, but Darnold has never played this well until he got Kevin O'Connell. So there's that avenue too. We all might just have to collectively suck in our pride, suck it all up, and run it out with Kyler next year. Because if you don't think it can get worse, it can get way worse. I don't even know who's starting for the Giants this week. I have no idea. It's probably Tommy DeVito or Drew Lock. Kyler's better than both of those guys. Or you want to be the Raiders, who are starting, if I'm not mistaken, Desmond Ridder this week. Like, it can definitely get way worse. So we're talking at this week that it's the Cardinals have the worst quarterback in the division, and that's not debatable anymore. So not a good place to be. We kind of just talked about Kyler. Let's move on to Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon was horrific today. The officiating was really bad for about a quarter and a half, and then it, for some reason, fixed itself, but this game was completely winnable. Jonathan Gannon burning through both of his timeouts in overtime was horrific. I think the play calling was okay at times. It really didn't get opened up until later on in this game, but if you want to talk about moving on from Jonathan Gannon at the end of the season or potentially even next season, you could do that. Go right on ahead. I don't know what head coach you're going to get to replace Gannon. It's the same thing of you want to fire Jonathan Gannon, and then what? What's the succession plan? So Gannon was really bad today. Did not get his team ready to play again. I know the Baron Browning penalty earlier in this game, the roughing the passer, was, make no mistake, a horrible call. But the officials have been calling those horrible calls all year. So you got to know when the guy lets go of the football to not touch him. I know that's stupid. I know that's the ridiculous part of 2024 football. I don't agree with it, but you have to know better. And Jonathan Gannon, whose team led the league in the least amount of penalties all year long, has started to get really sloppy. Combine that with the fact that this was a must-win game today, and Jonathan Gannon did not get them ready to play. So Jonathan Gannon, entering next season, is already on the hot seat. So you can defend the guy, you can like the culture he's built. At the end of the day, you have to win games. And with a team that has James Conner, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, all this talent, Paris Johnson Jr. even, you have to win more than 7 games. You tied yourself to Kyler Murray. You cannot blame the quarterback. You knew who the quarterback was when you showed up here. If Drew Petzing still has a job after this game or hasn't been stripped of duties by Jonathan Gannon, that is indefensible too. He should have had his job stripped from him 8 weeks ago, but we might just ride that out for the rest of the season just to feel good about it. But JG was bad in this game. His team has been undisciplined recently. Cross-country flights, he does not get them ready to play. And he still never blows a gasket on the sidelines. There were multiple times today he could have screamed at the officials for egregious penalties and never did. That is part of the game. Officials don't want to get yelled at. They are just as much as human as you are. They might let things go. You have to do that. And JG didn't do that today. Defensively, they were atrocious. I think it was 211 yards rushing. 243 yards rushing given up by the Carolina Panthers. And the Cardinals had 206 rushing yards. So they rushed the ball pretty effectively too. But the Cardinals have no business giving up 243 rushing yards to the Carolina Panthers. There's only one thing that the Panthers can do, and that is rush the football. And they have a pretty good offensive line. Make no mistake about it. It's a pretty good offensive line. Robert Hunt is on that line. It is much better from years before. It is not bad. And there's the only thing they can do is run the football. You can press the wide receivers, stack the box, make Bryce Young beat you with his arm. They didn't do that today. Coaching was horrible again. Discipline was horrible again. Nick Rawlis was bad again. Drew Petzing was bad again. While we were all sold on this rebuild last year, we're going to build on what we did. We just beat the Eagles. We are going to build on what we did last year. You're 6-4 through week 10, and you've completely went backwards. There is no more rebuilding. You have put the car in full-on reverse. Jonathan Gannon, at the start of next year, is on the hot seat. Kyler Murray, you can argue, can be gone. He can stay. It doesn't matter. He is clearly not good enough at this point to take you where you want to go. But this rebuild that we were all sold on, where there was a record amount of attendance at the fans for the red and white scrimmage this year. There was a record amount of people. That won't happen next year. You're not buying into any of this optimism. They didn't get ready to play. Gannon was bad. Kyler was bad. The defense was bad. The only person that nearly saved the Cardinals was James Conner today. Even the offensive line at times wasn't very good. I'm sure I'm missing more blame. There was a really bad third down conversion that newly paid safety Budda Baker gave up to old man Adam Thielen late in this game. He deserves some blame for that. Budda didn't have a good game overall. I think at this point I'm blabbering, but I just want to say one last thing before I call it a close on this reaction. Marvin Harrison Jr. has not delivered this year. You can blame Kyler all you want. And at times, there has been some blame that needs to go to Kyler. And I know at times, you look at the statistics and it's not that bad. But Marvin Harrison Jr., I put something out earlier this week. It got like 160,000 views on TikTok. It blew up. Marvin Harrison Jr. has not warranted the 4th overall pick. If you redid the draft, I'm not so sure MHJ goes in the top 10. Maybe not the top 15. He has not been the 4th overall pick this year. He has been largely a disappointment. You pick someone with the 4th overall pick, I expect Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson like rookie seasons. Marv, in overtime, 2 attempts to catch the ball. He is timid. It doesn't look like he has a real fire under him, and it just goes to show you these guys that come after Hall of Fame players, like his dad, Marvin Harrison, Hall of Fame player. For Marvin Harrison years ago, it was, I have to make it because there's uncertainty. For Marvin Harrison Jr., he's set for life. His dad is Marvin Harrison. He's an Ohio State legend. Once you take away that safety net, you don't have the same tenacity to get to be great. And that was one of the things I worried about Marvin. But he's not been the best wide receiver in his own draft class. He was wildly overdrafted, and he has been disappointing, especially in the second half of this season. At some point, it's not just Drew Petzing, right? The common denominator is Marvin Harrison Jr. He should have had a touchdown today where Kyler threw the ball perfectly, and Marvin Harrison Jr. dropped it, and he had 2 egregious drops in overtime in this game. So Marvin, that's on Monty Austinfort. You can't fall in love with the fun, shiny new toy. You have to do your scouting work. Oh, and also, this rookie class that I banked so much on Monty Austinfort over the past 6, 7, 8 months because he was so good in his first draft, this draft has not been very good. It's been okay. We have not seen the type of pop that you expected. Rabbit, the safety, has been good at times. Jalen Thompson's likely gone at the end of the year. Marv has been disappointing for the 4th overall pick. He's been good for a first-round wide receiver. He's been disappointing for the 4th overall pick. Trey Benson, okay. You expect more from a third-round running back. Overall, pretty disappointing game. And if fans are disinterested or they don't watch this video or they don't watch my future videos that I'm going to make on the Cardinals, win. Winning cures all. Bad loss. Probably the worst loss of Kyler Murray's career. And the worst thing that can happen now for the Cardinals. The worst thing that can happen before I end. The worst thing that can happen now for the Arizona Cardinals is they win out. Because the worst thing you can do is with low-pressure games, finish the season 9-8, beat the Rams, beat the San Francisco 49ers at home in 2 weeks, and then convince yourself you have the quarterback, you have the right head coach, you have the right OC, and say, hey, listen, we went 9-8, we just got to throw money at the problem, and everything will get fixed. I saw it. When games mattered, this team crippled. When games mattered, Jonathan Ganon wasn't great situationally. When games mattered, Kyler Murray couldn't make the play. Kyler is a guy. He is not the guy. When games mattered, Marvin Harrison Jr. was not great. The worst thing that can happen for this team is they go 9-8 and convince themselves they are this close from being championship contenders because you are not. You will be sadly mistaken. That's the worst thing that can happen. So if you're a Cardinal fan, you should be rooting for this team to lose and not be confused going into the offseason. They need to have a specific direction, know exactly what their team is, and not have a win streak to end the season and say, hey, listen, 9-8, that's not that bad. That's one game over 500 against a 4th place schedule where you beat the Jets, Bears, and the Rams when they were all beat up. But when push came to shove and you needed a win, everyone crapped the bed. It wasn't just Kyler. It wasn't just JG. It wasn't just the defense. Collectively, when you needed a win on the road against a 3-11 team in the Carolina Panthers, you were pushed around. You were pathetic. You were embarrassing. That's what happened. So pray for clarity for the end of the year. Curious to see what you guys think, and I'll be back with you guys probably tomorrow before Christmas to get you guys out a Ben Garcia show. For now, this has been a Benstant reaction. Until I see you guys again, I'm Ben Garcia, and it's been the Ben Garcia Show.